What's up, guys? Red Wolf here, and welcome back to the NC State Dynasty on College Football 26. It's time for our first offseason in this series. We're going to start with taking a look at our season stats from this year and see where we need to go in order to make this team even better in year two. I thought CJ Bailey played well. I don't think he was outstanding. I don't think he stood out. I also don't think he was bad. He ended up throwing for exactly 3,000 yards and 17 touchdowns, which was respectable considering we didn't really push the ball down the field until late in the year. Jaden Scott was outstanding. I didn't expect coming into this season to have to play him in a huge role. However, he became the lead running back after Hollywood Smothers went down with injury. He averaged over 5 yards a carry and had double-digit touchdowns. And I think he could be one of our most important players in Season 2. Hollywood Smothers was good after his return from injury. He came back with a bang with two 30-plus yard runs in that first game against Pitt, and then kind of settled down. He averaged only 4.5 yards per carry, ended the year with almost 100 carries. Jonathan Paylor was effective out of the backfield. I think we could get him a few more touches next season, but that depends on who's here and who isn't. The main ones we need to worry about: Jacarius Peak, Hollywood Smothers, Noah Rogers, and even Brian Nelson are all at risk of transferring. If we lose all of our top players, then I'm not really sure what this team will look like heading into Season 2. Even guys like Terrell Anderson and Jonathan Paylor, we need to make sure we try to keep track of and hang on to them. Noah Rogers really came on strong as of late. He scored 4 touchdowns in the last 6 games of the year. He had a huge bowl game, which might increase his stock in the transfer portal if he decides to enter it. Wesley Grimes had a respectable senior year. He had almost 500 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns. We didn't really use him as a vertical threat, but he showed late in the year that he was capable of that. I think if we were able to find him deep down the field a little bit more, some of these games might not have been as close, and we might have had a chance in our 3 losses. Justin Jolie was incredible. 73 catches, 916 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Of course, he did go on a cold streak in finding the end zone, but that was partly due to me not being able to find him in the red zone and get him into the end zone. Caden Fordham played well as he was the captain of the defense this year. He finished with over 100 total tackles. 25 of those went for a loss. Sean Brown was also strong in that linebacker room, finishing with 80 tackles, 19 for a loss, and he also added a couple sacks. Brandon Cleveland, Sebastian Harsh, and Travali Price all finished with over 11 sacks on the year. That's going to be very hard to replace between Price and Cleveland. We do get Sebastian Harsh back if he doesn't decide to transfer. He would be absolutely vital for our defense next season. Let's take a look at the All-Americans this year. We get one first-team All-American. Defensive tackle Brandon Cleveland breaks into the first-team All-American ranks. Finishes with 11 sacks, 31 tackles for loss. He had an incredible year and just really did his job even when he didn't get the tackle. Caden Fordham was a second-team All-American at the Mike linebacker position. He was also incredible for us this year, got banged up late in the year, but he played through those knocks and bruises to finish the year strong. We're going to have a tough time replacing him next year, as our linebacker depth isn't really what it needs to be, but we'll just have to wait and see. Jaden Scott was a first-team freshman All-American, and so was Michael Allen. The former NC State Wolfpacker almost ran for 1,000 yards and 16 touchdowns. Michael Allen and Jaden Scott had very similar lines this year for 2 different teams, but Jaden Scott ends up being our only first-team freshman All-American. Caden Fordham, Sebastian Harsh, Brandon Cleveland, and Devin Marshall are all first-team ACC selections. You would expect Brandon Cleveland and Caden Fordham to both be selected after being All-Americans. Sebastian Harsh and Devin Marshall also had solid years and get chosen for that effort. On the second team, we do have a few more selections. Most of our selections, as you've seen, are on the defensive side of the football. However, we get a few guys on the offense here. Justin Jolie, Jacarius Peak, and Teague Anderson all make second-team All-Conference. We get 2 of our offensive linemen on that team. Freshman All-ACC, of course, Jaden Scott is there. But on the defensive side of the football, we get a couple more guys selected here. Justin Terrell had a great season as a reserve defensive lineman. Zane Williams, Elijah Groves, and Ronnie Royal were all selected, even though they didn't play very many snaps. I think they just begin choosing guys once they don't find anybody who plays a lot. Here's this year's college football playoff according to my series on College Football 26. You got Georgia and Baylor in the national championship. Georgia looking to return to the top of the sport, and Baylor looking to knock off the Bulldogs. Georgia went through LSU and Texas to get there, and in the end, it's Baylor who comes away with the 42-28 win over Georgia. Baylor will be your defending champions heading into Season 2. Ohio State, Texas, and Oregon round out the top 5. Not a ton of surprises here. You do see Illinois up at 15, UNLV up to 18, and we finished the season ranked number 23. But here is where everything gets interesting. Noah Rogers, Hollywood Smothers, Jacarius Peak, Terrell Anderson, Brian Nelson. These guys are all extremely important for our plans for the future. We don't need to see them enter the transfer portal and make changes that we don't need to happen. Those guys are vital to what we need to do. Let's hope they decide to stay. And as we get to the players leaving screen, we see that all of those guys and more decide to hit the transfer portal. We don't have a great chance of persuading most of these players. Brian Nelson had a low persuasion chance. I thought we had a shot there, but he decides to leave. As does Jacarius Peak. Playing style wasn't fitting for what Peak wanted. Hollywood Smothers also did not see what he wanted in pro potential. And with a grade of F at the receiver position, I knew Noah Rogers was not going to decide to stay. We only have 3 more options left. You see Lex Thomas, Kelvin McBride, Terrell Anderson, Jonathan Paylor all entering the portal. We're hoping to at least retain 1 or 2 of these players. Lex Thomas played sparingly this year, ended up getting 1 start. I think he would be a great backup to continue to have on this team, but he's just not deciding to stay. Kenny Soares is another player who played well for us this year. He also decides to hit the transfer portal. And at this point, I'm just trying to find somebody that might have a chance at staying. I'm looking at right tackle Darian Rivers. He's an offensive lineman, 70 overall, 6'5", 315 pounds. But we also have right tackle Connor Doyle, a 71 overall. He has not been redshirted, D- playing style, and he also has not been persuaded. So every player who decided to hit the transfer portal will be leaving. Next season is going to look a lot different for the Wolfpack. I'm not sure how we're going to replace all of these receivers. We're losing all of our top pass catchers from this season. We're even losing Keenan Jackson, who didn't play much this year, but I think he could have carved out a role next season as we were graduating Justin Jolie and Wesley Grimes as pass catchers. Justin Jolie is our only projected draft pick right now, projected to go in round 2, and that's where he ends up getting selected. I think whatever team selects him is getting a steal no matter where he gets drafted. But that changes a lot heading into next year. I'm not sure where we go now. We're currently sitting at a 78 overall, 76 on the offensive side of the football, and we have a lot of work to do. Nathan Laycock is interesting. He hits the transfer portal again. He's a 4-star rated transfer from UNC, starting his career at Tennessee, but obviously not happy anywhere he goes. Only a couple of 5-star recruits in the transfer portal. We saw one of them. Kelvin Falk enters the portal after an outstanding season at Auburn. And as we go down the list, you see Brian Nelson is ranked as the number 26 transfer in the country. He also has locked us out. We do not have a chance to keep him here. Unfortunately, our playing style does not match with what he wants, and he'll be going elsewhere. We'll have to take a look at where these guys end up. I'll be interested to see if their deal breakers match with where they go. Jacarius Peak also keeps us locked out. We don't have a chance to keep him. Tennessee, Arkansas, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama currently fighting for him. Looks like he will end up in the SEC. Seth McGowan is a transfer running back from Kentucky. He's a 4-star rated running back. And I think after losing Smothers, we need to try to target some of these running backs to bolster that room some. At quarterback, we did lose Lex Thomas. However, we did recruit 1 or 2 quarterbacks that are coming in next season, and CJ Bailey has at least 1 more year as the starter. At wide receiver, we need to replace a lot. I've already added Nathan Laycock to the board. However, as we go through the rest of this list, Not many of these guys are available for us to recruit. Even Noah Rogers has not allowed us to try to recruit him. At tight end, we are losing Justin Jolie. I'm very excited about our high school recruit, Jamison Cheridor. He comes in as a 4-star recruit out of high school, and I think he's somebody who's going to carve out a role fairly quickly. As you can see, a lot of our strengths are not matching up with most of these recruits. We're not able to recruit a lot of the top players in the transfer portal. That explains why we're losing so much, but also leaves us in a bind. We have 1,050 hours to use. However, we're not able to use those hours on most of these players. There's 4-star offensive guards I was hoping we'd have a chance at. However, the top rated recruit that we have a chance for on that offensive line is Sam Pendleton, a left guard from North Carolina. We just don't have a ton of options. We go through each of these lists, and most of the recruits have us locked out. We've got a lot of work to do if we want to change the perception for these players in the transfer portal. I do think we could have a competitive year next year, but we are really going to struggle if we can't get the depth that we need. Next season, we might have to hit the high school recruits a little bit harder to see if we can't get more commitments heading into the offseason. We need to plan for this mass exodus that might happen in today's transfer portal because we just don't have a ton of options here. I'm just showing you the rest of the board to see who hit the portal and who didn't. And there's a lot of interesting names. CJ Mims is a transfer from UNC. He decided to hit the transfer portal. We're going to add him to the board at that defensive tackle position. Losing Brandon Cleveland is a big hole on that defensive line, but I think Justin Terrell could play well at that spot. We do run a 3-3-5, a dime package, and we run a 4-2-5. So we don't need 2 defensive tackles on the field all the time, but it would be nice to have 2 really good options there, especially if we get some injuries. You saw last season, we had an injury in week 1 that really affected our year, even though Jaden Scott played extremely well. In the secondary, we really only have one strong option. That's strong safety Malcolm Ziegler, also from UNC. And then we have Aiden Monutai, a transfer from Cal. We're going to try to recruit a punter and a kicker. You may have missed it earlier. Alex Falk was actually the first team All-American selection at punter from Northwestern. We're adding him to the board. That would be a really strong get for this team, even though it's not at a skill position. Running back Michael Allen also hit the transfer portal. He's interested in the Wolfpack, even though he just left here a year ago. Alonzo Barnett is the best recruit we have on our board, a 4-star dual threat quarterback who I think we do have a chance at getting a commitment from, but we do have a lot of work to do. But let's spend these hours. We do have 1,050 available. We have 13 commitments so far in this season. Jaden Sylvan is a 3-star high school recruit quarterback pure runner from Pennsylvania. We've recruited him all year, and I think that if we continue to put points into him, he will commit to NC State. Alonzo Barnett might be the most important recruit on the board. He's the number 4 quarterback in the transfer portal and the number 27 recruit overall. Nathan Laycock suddenly became an important recruit with our mass exodus from the wide receiver room. Michael Welch, Peyton Lewis, Seth McGowan are 3 running back targets we have. We did end up losing Hollywood Smothers, but we returned Jaden Scott, Zach Kaiser, and Isaiah Jones. I would like to add 1 or 2 bodies to that room because running backs do get beat up a lot more than other positions. Sam Pendleton would be an important recruit on the offensive line. Will come in as a sophomore and could develop for a couple of seasons and be one of our most important pieces on that line. I think Malcolm Ziegler could also come in and start right away. We did end up adding Alex Falk and Nolan Hauser to the board. Both of these guys are specialists who I think could come in and make a difference. Noah Venissette graduated this year, so we don't have a kicker on the roster currently. And it would be incredible to bring in the first-team All-American punter to be our guy and help us win the field position battle. As we head to the next week, we end up getting a commitment from Jaden Sylvan, comes in to bolster that quarterback room, right now led by CJ Bailey. Sylvan comes in, will be behind Will Wilson on the depth chart, but he will have an opportunity in the future to become our starting quarterback. And after 1 week of offseason recruiting, we're able to start hard selling a lot of these players on their interests, especially when they line up with what we're able to offer. Nathan Laycock, his third priority is proximity to home, but we don't match up with all three of his interests. I wonder if that'll play an effect into who he decides to transfer to. I hope we're able to land him because at 6'3", he can fly. I think he would be able to help us take the top off the defense, especially with how thin our current wide receiver room is. We're currently in second for Michael Welch, leading for Peyton Lewis. A few of these guys are scheduled to visit this week, including Alonzo Barnett. We're currently in the lead for Barnett, Louisville right behind us. Seth McGowan currently favors the Wolfpack, Vanderbilt right behind. And we are in a good position for a lot of these recruits. As you can see at the bottom, we end up getting commitments from Nolan Hauser and Michael Allen. Allen comes in, will be a running back I think will play fairly often after running for almost 1,000 yards last season and 16 touchdowns. Aiden Manutai would come in as a freshman. He's from Hawaii, but we do somehow get an A+ proximity to home rating. Not exactly sure where Manutai thinks North Carolina is, but if he wants to come here, I'm not going to tell him no. Alex Falk is that first-team All-American punter. I think we have a really good shot at landing him. His interests align with what we're able to offer for the most part, and I think he will choose to run with the Wolfpack. Nolan Hauser comes in, will be our starting kicker. Michael Allen will come in, and I'm not sure who's going to lead that running back room yet. It'll depend on whether or not these other running backs decide to commit and who improves the most in off-season training. A new recruit I added is Shamurad Umarov, a left guard from Georgia, would come in as a sophomore. He is the #1 guard in the transfer portal. His deal breaker must have changed, or our grade must have changed to allow us to put him on the board. We are in second place for him. He would come in at 6'7", 330 pounds. Not really the ideal size for an offensive guard, but maybe we could slide him over to a tackle position, especially with the loss of Jacarius Peak. But that's where our board stands out right now. I'm hoping a lot of these players decide to commit, but we'll have to wait and see. Heading to week 3, we end up getting a commitment from Seth McGowan, the Kentucky transfer rated as a 4-star. We also get a commitment from Sam Pendleton, who will help bolster our offensive line. We get a third, that's CJ Mims, the defensive tackle from UNC, decides to go to the rival NC State Wolfpack, as does Malcolm Ziegler, the strong safety from UNC. But as we head to the last week of recruiting, Alonzo Barnett and Nathan Laycock both have us as their second team on their board. We are in a recruiting battle with Louisville for Alonzo Barnett, and we are also in a battle for Nathan Laycock with Duke. The UNC transfer has narrowed his options to us and the Blue Devils, and if he wants to go pro, I think this decision should be fairly straightforward. We are gaining on the Blue Devils, but I'm not sure if we have enough time to overcome Duke. We're in a recruiting battle for Michael Welch with Auburn. Peyton Lewis has dropped us to his #2 team, even though our interests do align. He's from Virginia, would rather go north than south to head to Maryland. Also in a recruiting battle with Duke for Aiden Manutai. Alex Falk currently has us in his top position. Nobody else really recruiting the first-team All-American punter. Not sure if they just knew he would commit to the Wolfpack or if they didn't want to spend points on a punter. But I'll take him all day, every day, as he could be a huge piece for us heading into next season. I checked the transfer portal board one more time, and an interesting recruit I see is tight end Xavier Watson from UConn. He's originally from New York. However, he's 6'4", 210 pounds, and his archetype is a physical route runner. He could be the next Justin Jolie with a year or two of development, as Jolie also transferred in from UConn. I think that he could give us some much needed flexibility in that tight end room, but we really only have 1 week to recruit him. We have to hope our pitches work in 1 week of communicating with Watson. But as we head to the end of off-season recruiting, we see who we get commitments from. Aiden Manutai is the first, the strong safety from Hawaii, goes all the way across the country. Alex Falk makes it official. The Northwestern transfer joins the Wolfpack. In addition to Falk, we also get a commitment from tight end Xavier Watson, who I guess liked what we said in that 1 week of talks. But as you can see, Nathan Laycock goes to Duke. Seth McGowan commits to Vanderbilt. Keep that in the back of your mind as we head through the rest of this episode. We miss out on Lewis and Umarov. and end up with the number 56 ranked class in the country, toward the bottom of the ACC. Not exactly the recruiting showing I wanted Coach Marco McBroom to have in his first year. But now we get to take a look at our training results. CJ Bailey improves by 2. Will Wilson improves by 4. Will Wilson now has 88 speed. Michael Allen improves to an 84. Zach Kaiser and Jaden Scott both ranked 81. And Isaiah Jones comes in at 78. We have a strong running back room. That might be who we run our offense through. You take a look at our wide receiver room. It's pretty disappointing. We do have big gains in that wide receiver room. Tank Boston now an 80 overall as a redshirt sophomore. However, there's only 3 on our roster right now. DeAnthony Green is currently our top-rated tight end. Of course, this does not include our true freshman. I do think Jamison Cheridor will come in and be one of our higher-rated tight ends. Our offensive line is looking a little bit worse than it was last season. Teague Anderson does not improve at all. We do retain him, however, he sticks at an 82. Antonio Franklin Thomas improves by 6. After Sebastian Harsh's breakout season, he only improves by 1. And CJ Mims offers some much-needed depth in that D tackle room. Both of our starting D tackles are now rated 80 overall. Our linebacking room is decent. I do think we need to add depth there as well, especially in that will linebacker spot. We have a recruit coming in I'm pretty excited about that you'll be able to see in year 2. Marvin Martin, Ronnie Royal, Damon Fagan are all returning safeties. Malcolm Ziegler improves by 7, now has 94 speed at the strong safety spot. I think he's going to be a very crucial player for this Wolfpack defense. Aiden Manutai comes in at a 75. Nolan Hauser is from North Carolina, comes in at a 77. And Alex Falk, the redshirt senior, is an 82 overall. I end up cutting Owen Fair just because I don't want to carry 2 punters. We advance the week. We're going to move on to the rest of this offseason. And you can already see we're starting to deal with transfer problems heading into next year. Our now top-rated receiver Tank Boston has a pretty high risk of transferring, as does Will Wilson, our backup quarterback. We are going to ask Owen Fair to transfer. I don't want to keep 2 punters on the roster, but he's really the only one that we're going to ask to leave. I think a lot of these other players could develop into something more than just a bench player. We need guys who could play a role and help us in games that we need our depth. Will Wilson, CJ Bailey, and Jaden Sylvan are our quarterbacks, but you get to see it here. Seth McGowan is on our roster. In the offseason, it said he committed to Vanderbilt, but Seth McGowan is a Wolfpacker. I'm not sure how that happened, but I'm not complaining. Jamison Cheridor comes in at 81 speed, 74 overall. I'm extremely excited about him. I think he could be a very high draft pick when all is said and done. We're now heading into Season 2. I'm excited for what the future holds, but I think you're going to see a much different brand of football this year than we did last year. Our offense is going to run through our running backs and our tight ends. I think I'm going to have at least 2 tight ends on the field at pretty much all times. I've already made some changes to the playbook we'll be using. I've added a lot more 2 tight end sets, and I think I'm going to use a tight end in the slot more often this season. With only 3 returning receivers, I don't need any of them getting hurt. And I think our best option for success will run through the running backs and the tight ends. Here's our depth chart heading into Season 2. Seth McGowan leads the way, 92 speed, 88 overall. What a difference that is that Seth McGowan ends up on the Wolfpack roster. Again, I don't know how it happened, but he is an NC State Wolfpacker. Tank Boston, TJ Blanton, and Cooper Stinnett are our top 3 receivers. Josh Wing is a true freshman coming in. He is our 4th ranked receiver on the depth chart. DeAnthony Green currently the number 1 tight end. However, that'll change as the season goes on. I think DeAnthony Green might be more of our inline tight end. And I'll split Jamison Cheridor out in the slot to get him on linebackers, and maybe he can use his speed to get open. Our team doesn't look bad. We're actually rated higher than we were a season ago, especially on the defensive side of the football. I think our defense could be one of the better ones in the ACC. Lamar Boykins is a will linebacker, true freshman, who might end up starting this year for the Wolfpack. He is rated 79 as a true freshman with 80 speed. Our current starter at that will position is Sam linebacker Joseph Adidere, a redshirt senior, also rated 79 overall. Marvin Martin and Ronnie Royal will split time at that free safety spot, and Malcolm Ziegler is going to hold down the strong safety position. I'm excited for Season 2. I think CJ Bailey is going to play better. I think this running back room will excite a lot of people heading into Year 2. But I'm extremely disappointed in our wide receivers. I didn't anticipate a lot of the transfers that occurred. And because of that, I didn't have a lot of receivers on the board throughout the season. That'll change next year. We're really going to focus on receiver. We'll focus on the defensive talent that we need, but just adding overall depth. I really need to sign a full class of 35 players next year to help us fill the gaps that we have. Jacarius Peak ends up at Tennessee. He is an SEC left tackle for his last season in college. I guess he hopes that will help him get drafted next year. The preseason All-Americans are listed. We have nobody on the first team. And as we go through the second team, we have nobody there either. I showed you where Jacarius Peak ended up. And in Game 1 of Season 2, I'll show you where a few of the other transfers ended as well. I think you'll be surprised with some of the results that we see in that transfer portal. But that'll do it for today, guys. I'm excited for Season 2. I think this is going to be a very successful series, as we're already starting Season 2 about 3 weeks into College Football 26. Let me know your predictions down in the comments. Let me know what you think our record will be this year. We open against Kansas in Georgia for the Chick-fil-A kickoff game. I'm excited. I'm ready to see what this team has to offer. And I'm also excited about playing a different style of football. When I play football games, most of my plays are fairly similar to what I do from one game to another. However, we're adding a lot of tight end heavy formations to kind of change what I'm doing with that offense. Make sure to share this video with your friends. If you know anybody who enjoys college football or just football in general, share this channel with them. I think that we are having a very successful year so far, and the channel will only grow from here. Thanks you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't. I'll see you guys later.